Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Lions Leadership Den. I am your host, Steve Rozenberg. Normally with me is my friend and partner in crime, Alex Osenenko, who is MIA today because he's busy with other projects ruling the world, I guess. But today we have a very special guest. And let me just tell you a little bit about the Lions Leadership Den and what we do. The show is basically set up for people like myself, like my friend Sid here, that are business owners that are trying to find a better way to run their business. And let's face it, in business, everybody has these trials and tribulations and dramas that they go through and self-checking. And sometimes you don't know who to ask, you don't know who to talk to. And so the reason Alex and I created the show was we wanted to have business owners and people that are out there, entrepreneurs, trying to figure out how and where to do this to have a voice. And so, you know, we have this on iTunes. It's also on my website, steverozenberg.com. We have a Facebook group called the Sphere of Influence. And again, all this is made just so that people like myself, really selfishly, Alex and other people like Sid here, to be able to have a place to ask people questions, have conversations, whatever the industry is, to see how it's relatable. Because at the end of the day, business is business, right? You have inbound, you have income, you have sales, you have transactions, and then it goes the other way. Outbound with expenses, and in between the two, you got profit. So without further ado, I've got my good friend Sid. Sid, thanks for being on the show today, man. I appreciate it, buddy.
Thanks for the invite, brother. It's good just to have a conversation with you, let alone be on your show. So
Yeah.
I'm happy to be here, man.
My pleasure.
Real
So
happy to be here.
the way that Sid and I met is we have a mutual friend, a good friend of ours named Marshall Silver, who I was trained, and I did a lot of mentoring from Marshall a couple years ago. I was speaking at an event in Vegas, and Marshall invited me to dinner, and Sid was there with Tiffany. And so we had good conversations. We chatted over dinner and kind of thought, okay, we're both from Texas. Maybe we should kind of explore some more
That's
conversations.
typically how it goes.
That's how it goes, right? That's how it goes. Yeah. So Sid, tell everyone a little bit about what you've done, because you're a serial entrepreneur. You've got several businesses that you've started over the years. Kind of give your brief history about you. And
well, you know, like you said, man, you know, we're kindred spirits. You know, we're kindred spirits, Steven. You know, if we can make money at it, my man, we do it. You know, I got started just through the influence of marketing, you know, just social media, being out there, letting people really just know my story. That was kind of how I got started a couple years ago. You know, I legitimately had a gun in my mouth in 2016. And, you know, I was living with my parents at the time just for some unfortunate things that had happened to me. You know, I got divorced, or my wife was cheating on me. And then I had a business partner who was embezzling money. And I got down to like $300 and I lost a lot of things, and I had to go back home. And then I just decided to move to Texas one day in April of 2017 and sold almost everything I had. And I literally chased a dream down here and drove down here and just piece by piece built it. And, you know, started out with about 3,000. We've done just over, you know, I think we've done close to 5 million or 5 million now since. So it's been a lot of fun, but at the same time, I mean, you know, it's about believing in yourself and, you know, taking a chance on yourself, because like Tony Robbins once said, I mean, when people are either going to die or succeed, they tend to succeed.
Yeah. Yeah. Now let me ask you this. So, I mean, obviously you went from, you know, you had that failure that we all hit, you know, sometimes people hit it deeper than others, obviously. What were some of the things that you were kind of dealing with kind of in your head that you had to kind of work through just to get yourself to get back on that horse to basically say, okay, I'm going to go to a new city. Mm-hmm. I'm going to start something fresh. I got to talk myself through this. Like, just for other people, because look, a lot of people fail and quit, right? They fail and they go back and get a job, or they do this or that. You obviously did not do that. So what caused you?
I guess the best way to put it, Steve, is I had failed. I mean, you hear this a lot. I had failed at everything that, you know, I mean, I'd had jobs and I hated them. Like, I hated working for someone else. I could see it in my head. Like, I felt myself dying. You know, I'd had other jobs. I'd worked at other ad agencies. My entire life was around this digital stuff. I mean, I had worked at ad agencies. I had worked at big time agencies, small time agencies. I'd built websites for myself. Like I had been in and out of this entrepreneurial thing, kind of bouncing in and out. I never really fully went in. And I guess like, man, this was kind of, I mean, it's cliche, but I didn't have anything else. I didn't have any friends even. To be honest with you, I thought at the time, I didn't even think I had a family. Even though I knew my family was physically there, I felt like I was on an island alone, and that I needed to not only prove this to the world, but prove it to myself. And I wasn't scared of having to go out there and do it. And to be honest with you, I had been so poor for so long that it was normal. I mean, like I had went to Florida and moved right after college for graduate school. So I knew what it was like to move out, and I lived in Miami. So that was a huge culture shock. But yeah, so when I moved to Dallas, to be honest with you, I kind of got lucky. Dallas is just like my hometown in the Midwest. It's just a lot bigger. So, you know, a lot of the things, it's not like going to New York or Miami where it's a completely different world. I mean, the people here are very similar to home. It's just a lot bigger. And I'm thinking I just kind of got lucky, but at the same time, man, like what went through my head? I think the biggest thing that went through my head, Steve, and I think you can relate to this, is, you know, as entrepreneurs, we're problem solvers. We have to be. We're every day. I don't know about you, but every day I got to figure out something. I have to do something. I'll pull a rabbit out of some hat, and not in a bad way. Just I have to constantly do something to better myself, or to better what I've done, or to do something that's not been done. And, you know, I think that was one of the biggest things, you know, when you take that initial leap. I think people always talk about taking massive action. I think just taking that initial leap and that initial massive action is that mindset shift that you kind of have to take. And, you know, I tell people all the time, I make mistakes daily. I get called names. You know, I do things often. At the same time, though, the biggest reason I can't be beat is because I don't stay on the mat. You can knock me down all day. Anybody can. But the thing is I'm going to hop right back up and tell you to hit me again. And that's why 3 years in, I'm still standing and I'm still rocking, and, you know, we're still going about our mission.
You know,
and that's, you know,
it's interesting.
What I would tell your listeners.
You know, as entrepreneurs, a couple of things you said that really, to me, kind of hit home is, number one, there is no such thing as a 9 to 5.
No.
This thing is a Monday through Friday, right? It's
no.
You know, I mean, it's when an idea hits you, or a thought that you can improve a business model or a system or a procedure, it's one of those things that you got to act on it, right? Because if you don't, you will either lose that idea and lose that thought because it's replaced with 5 others, right?
Yeah.
Or you get inundated with other things, and all of a sudden you realize, like, oh man, what was I thinking about? And I've learned that, you know, you've got to take the biggest thing, what you told me, and you know, what you did and what I've done, and other people that are successful or trying to be successful, is they just take action. They don't know if it's right or wrong. They just do it, you know? And so what you and Tiffany do, you just take action. Whether it's a good business or a bad business, you're still moving forward in a business. And look, this business is not as good as the one you're going to create in 10 years, right? I mean, that's just how it is when you're an entrepreneur. You don't know what's coming around the corner, right?
I don't know. I mean, have you ever listened to Eric Thomas, Steve? The motivational speaker, Eric Thomas? I mean, he has, you know, during my kind of going through this stuff that I went through a few years ago, which, by the way, it's never ending as an entrepreneur. Like, I think a lot of people, you know, there's this whole idea of happily ever after that doesn't exist. You know, I remember when I first got started, and I remember thinking, man, if I could just make like $3,000 a month, if I can make $3,000 a month, all my bills are paid, I have $1,000 a month, $250 a week, that I can go out there and do whatever I want, and that's all I need. If I just have that for the rest of my life, I'm good. And then what happened? I made $10,000 a month. And then making $10,000 a month opened a whole new, you know what I mean? And then now, you know, we're at 45, 50, 60, 70. I mean, like, so there's never a happy ending. Like, there's never like, I'm going to get to this destination and you're there and you can just sit there and get complacent and live happily ever after. That doesn't exist. And I think when you get into entrepreneurship, one of the first lessons I learned, Steve, is leverage. I mean, like, you have to know how to leverage certain things. And, you know, when it comes to money, I don't believe, like, there's financial freedom, But as an entrepreneur, I'm going out there to make money so I can leverage it to get something bigger. And then I'm constantly get something bigger, make more money, leverage it again. Like I'm constantly leveraging whatever I have to make it into a bigger mountain. And like, you know, I don't know about you, but I don't just sit on a lot of money. I'm constantly reinvesting it to make something.
It's the velocity. It's got to keep moving. It can't just sit still. It's got to keep moving.
If it sits, it dies.
Yeah, it dies. It dies. I agree. So let me ask you this. So you and I both are friends with Marshall Silver, right? And we were both in Oceanside a couple weeks ago, both speaking at an event. And I'm just curious, you know, I'm a big proponent of education. I know you guys just joined the Arte Syndicate with Ed Milet and Frisella, which.
Well, we're in the accelerator program, just to make sure. We're not in the syndicate. We'll be in the syndicate next year, but we're going through the first year right now. Yeah.
Okay, understood. But two major studs that are out there just getting stuff done.
Oh my God, yeah.
You know, I mean, just yeah. But let me ask you,
amazing people.
Yeah, like how did Marshall help you, or you know, because he influenced me a lot, right, over the years. And again, it wasn't just you know, when I first went and talked to him and was trained with him and stuff, it was back in like 2015. And it kind of is one of those things that it matures over time, and you don't really realize how much someone like him, just having that guy you can talk to, you know, for me, like I can call him up and go like, hey man, what do you think? But did it help you that way, or did it help you think any bigger? Or?
Well, you know, Tiffany and I, we spent a lot of time at Marshall's house, especially during the beginning. He leaned on us for some marketing help, you know, for a few months on some things, and we helped him out, of course, you know, just because, I mean, that's what you do. Sure. But, you know, so, you know, we got to spend a lot of time at his house, and we did talk about me and Tiffany's relationship. I know within that network and a lot of networks that we were in, Tiffany and I have a very unique relationship. I mean, we're classified as this power couple and stuff like that. But in all honesty, we're just two entrepreneurs out there going out there and trying to kick butt every day. I mean, that's all it is. I mean, and, you know, but one of the things that we had is, you know, we worked together with him on our relationship. You know, our relationship is, you know, I will say this, I've seen this happen, and I believe it was part of what happened in my previous marriage. But like when you have one person as an entrepreneur and the other one's not, you know, you got one person that's out there every day trying to get better, and it's, you know, the other one kind of has to keep up. Yeah. And, you know, it's a very difficult relationship. Whereas Tiffany and I, we don't have that problem. We have the problem on the other end where we're just constantly out there trying to beat one another. You know, I mean, Tiffany beat me for the first time this month as far as revenue, and she's loving it. But the thing is we're constantly kind of doing that, which is constantly building us up. You know, it's a healthy competition. The biggest thing with Marshall, I think that we've taken thus far is we sit down for about 2.5 hours with him one day and had just a conversation about whatever what Tiffany and I are, because, you know, we you know, Tiffany and I, we love each other, and it's like any other couple. At the same time, we both know that each other have a mission, and that mission united is powerful. And, you know, we kind of just look at it as we're leaders of whatever this mission is. And the mission is for the good of the world. And we go out there and we tag team it. And like, that's honestly, like, we look at each other each morning. We have a whiteboard, Steve, right in front of our bed. I don't know many couples that do that. We have a whiteboard in front of our bed. I'll send you a picture of it. And it literally has all of our businesses. We have 6 different businesses, and then goals for each business. We get up every morning and we look at that and brainstorm every morning before we go work out. And there's not many married couples that do that. No. But we do. And, you know, we take it. This is our life. And, you know, with Marshall, I looked at him more. I don't know about you, Steve, but, you know, Marshall, he's not a marketing guy, right? I mean, like, you know, I work with Frank Kern, I work with Brad Beard, and I work with some pretty high level digital marketers out there that we've paid to work with, of course, with Ed Milet and Andy, but they're for different, you know, they're for me, worthiness. Marshall, for me, was self-worth, a lot of it, to be honest with you. Because for the longest time, man, like, I grew up in a little town called Mount Sterling, Kentucky, about 45 minutes east of Lexington, Kentucky, which, if you know Kentucky, Lexington's the little college town that everybody that lives there thinks it's, you know, freaking New York City. But anyway, so, you know, I grew up in a 5-light town, you know, and a big thing with me, my man, was I didn't feel like, for the longest time, you know, I still fight this demon, but I didn't feel like for the longest time that I was worthy. private clients pay me $20,000 to work with me for 3 months. And I just didn't feel like I was worthy to get paid that kind of money for the knowledge that a kid that grew up in a 5-light town had. And, having Marshall always talked about, if you remember, find a mentor that's been where you're at, that's gotten to where you want to go and that's exceeded it. Marshall's done that. I mean, he grew up in a very small town. I mean, not like I grew up we didn't grow up poor, but, we definitely didn't grow up lavish. And Marshall's really helped me with just understanding that the knowledge and the information that I have and the work that I do is worth the amount of money that people pay me. Because when you get into the high ticket world, it's a different world. And, having that confidence is a big thing that Marshall helped me with.
It's interesting that you talk about that, because when I went to the inner circle with Marshall at his house back in 2015, it was me and my business partner, Pete. And I went there thinking it was going to be all business, like everything was going to be business. And what we realized, it was a lot more of like personal, there was a lot of couples and there was a lot of people going through challenges on a personal level or personal growth that people wanted. And it was interesting to me. I've got a business coach and that, and I thought it was going to be an extension of the business coach, but
sure,
realize that you need coaches for multiple parts of your life, and you need people.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And,
you hit the nail on the head there.
Yeah. And I just remember, sitting there thinking like, this isn't really a business coaching thing. This is more of a, it
was a personal development thing to me.
How do you mentally unblock these things in your head to believe that you can charge $20,000 to grow a company, 1,000 property, and that was really what he worked on us on, of mentally accepting that we were good.
Well, just knowing, it's there. Go get it. Like, it's there for you. It's okay. You can go out there and people want to pay you $20,000. Yes, take it. Yeah. It's just that whole that whole thing. I don't know about you, Steve, but when I sat in my chair, the biggest takeaway I got was smiling more. I don't know what it was when I sit in that chair. I had this whole, you're sitting. So, for the ones that are listening, we get an hour. I don't know. We got an hour with him talking for the hot seat.
Yeah.
So in the hot seat, Marshall sets you down in a chair and you're sitting in front of, for us, it was 9. We only had 10 hours. I bet you had 4.
Yeah, about the same.
Yeah. So these are every single person in that room has paid $50,000 to sit in that chair. So you're sitting in there with, a lot of, self-made multimillionaires. These are not people that, grew up doing this the way that the school tells you to do it. These people scratch, claw, do whatever they had to get there. So you're sitting in there with high respect with these people that you've now spent a full intimate times with here. And they're just staring at you. And it's a theater, so they're staring at you from above, so looking down at you. And then you got Marshall right here, and then it's a theater, so he has the lighting, and you know how Marshall is. It's like 30 degrees in there, so you're ice cold. And you sit down and you think you have this whole thing laid out. I sat down, and I'll never forget it. I sat down, and our inner circle was actually with 2 people that we had invited. So we had half the people there, or 4 of the 10 people were our friends. It was me, Tiffany, and then a guy, Adam Neese, who's now running Certain Pay with Marshall, and then Tracy Geen, who's a REI, who's speaking at our event with you. You're going to be speaking on the same stage with in November with us. And we're sitting in there, and I'll never forget this, man. I'm sitting there, I sit down, and I get kind of giggly when I get nervous. And I was nervous as all get out, right? I did not want to sit in that chair. And it mainly was just because I knew, and out of respect for Marshall, he was going to find or dig or see something that I didn't even know was there. And I was almost scared of figuring out what that was. So I sit down in the chair, and I'll never forget this. Adam, Adam's like the second man in my wedding. Right? He's like one of my best friends. Wow. I sit down in front of him, and I said, man, I don't want you sitting in front of me. I'm only really worried about you. And then ever since that, Marshall took that comment, which honestly was like an unconscious kind of jokingly comment to try to ease my nerves. And he dug at that, and he took a knife and he just dug into that as deep as it would go, and really found the root of why I even thought that. And that was my first 15 minutes. After that, I was on tilt. I recorded it, so I've listened to it a few times, but he just knocked me on my butt. And I just didn't really know. And come to find out, he flat out told me, he said, you're going to double your business by just smiling and being more charismatic to the people that are around you. And I didn't really realize that, I just kind of get into this thinking mode. I'm sure you get that way, Steve. When you get into thinking, you get into seeing I think for hours a day. You know, I actually take time out at night and sit outside in the dark and think. And I just get into this serious kind of thinking phase. And I didn't even unconsciously realize that when I was out and about, it's not that I'm upset. I just sit there and that's my face. So I need to be conscious about smiling and nodding at people, because that's going to make it more acceptable and people are going to be wanting to be in my space more often. So now I'm conscious about that, and it has. I mean, just simply doing that has got me in front of a lot more people. And sales is sales. So you get in front of more people, you make more sales. So, I mean, like, that was my biggest takeaway from the inner circle. But the biggest thing with Marshall, man, and I think you would agree, I mean, the network is amazing. And, you know, it's a network of brothers and sisters that, I mean, you know, me and you met, you know, or we didn't even really meet. We met at one of the inner circle dinners, and then it was just like instant. You're Texas, I'm Texas, we're inner circle. Let's collaborate. Let's here. I mean, there was no question. It was just, this is what it is. Go. And, you know, we still don't 100% know what's all there yet, but we do have a couple of things that we're working together on that we know it's going to materialize, but it's just a matter of, like you said, going. We don't necessarily have a plan in place or anything like that. It's just, you got a podcast, we got podcast, we have an event, we got things we're doing, we got a way that we can incorporate your VA business. Let's just figure this out. And eventually we're going to be rocking and rolling. And our little relationship here together is going to be, you know, creating more velocity in the economy. And that velocity is going to come back and it's going to pay us back for it. And, you know, everybody's going to end up winning. And that's what it's about. You know, everybody winning at this game, you know.
Yeah.
That's what we try to focus on.
I'll tell you a quick little story about me with Marshall. So when we were there, Pete, my business partner, Pete and myself were there, you know, Pete and I are kind of like brothers, right? We're always joking with each other, kind of like putting each other down like this, you know, joking around. And we were joking with each other, and Marshall kind of stopped and he goes, "Don't do that." And we're like, don't put each other down. He goes, don't.
You mentioned that at the turning point, man.
Yeah. And he was like, "Don't do that." And we were like, "Oh, well, we're just joking." He's like, "It doesn't matter." He's like,
"Words matter.
And what you say comes out." And I was like, one of the things he caught out of me was that I'm I forget the term. It was kind of a diminisher. Like, you know, like I kind of, any accomplishment or anything like that, I kind of suppress it. And I never enjoy the victories. I'm always on to the next task, and I'm always on to the next win, right? I don't ever savor the win. I'm focused on the next thing. And he had told me that that's something that you work on. And so what was interesting is about 2 years later, I was speaking at an event with Marshall, with a mutual friend of ours named Tarl Yarber up in Seattle. And so Marshall and I were speaking at this event, and Marshall says, "Hey, you know, do you want to fly back to Vegas with me on my jet?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." You know, like,
I haven't gotten that lucky yet.
Yeah. So I'm on, so it's just me, Marshall, and Erica, his wife, and we're on the jet. Wow. We're flying home to Vegas, and he and I are hanging out. And he says, "You know," he says, "Man, you're really getting good at speaking. You're doing a good job," and this and that. And I said, "Thanks, man." I said, "I'm not that good yet. I'm still trying this and that." And he said, "Let me tell you something." He said, "When someone like me tells you you're doing a good job, you know what you say?" And I said, "What?"
Mm-hmm.
He said, "You say thank you." And that's it. He said, "You're flying on a private jet with me, and you and I are having conversation, and I'm giving you a compliment." He said, "Say thank you, accept it." And I was like,
Tiffany does that to me all the time, man.
Yeah. And it was very humble. It was very interesting. And I was like, he's like, "You are one of the few that I would say that to. So the fact that I'm telling you this means," he goes, "I'm not saying it to say it. I don't need to tell anyone that you're good at anything." He goes, "I'm saying it."
You guys are up in a plane. Yeah. There's no one there listening. Doing him.
Exactly.
But yeah, he, you know, my experience with him on that, Steve, and I know you and I have very, you know, I don't want to say we have any more than anybody else, because we don't, but at the same time, we just sort of, I guess, you know, we were able to very quickly, I guess, relate with Marshall, I guess is the best way to put it, or mesh with him, I guess, as a person, not as a teacher or as a student.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the best way to put it. But what I mean by that is like, you know, one of the things, the biggest takeaway, and if you go onto my Facebook, you can see it. I have a meme up there about it. When I was sitting in my hot seat, to be honest, I've listened to this probably 50, 60 times. You know, I'm a big believer, you know, we have our family, you know, which I love my parents, and my parents have been great to me since day one. And I love my family of origin. At the same time, I'm a big believer that we have a family of choice as well. And, you know, obviously you're in my family of choice, Steve. You know, I mean, we're ride or die with you, me and Tiffany are. But along with that, you know, like Marshall, I always looked up to him. And Marshall was kind of like that to me in a way, kind of like that entrepreneurial father figure. You know, not in a weird, creepy, like overbearing way of any kind, but it's like you mentioned, if I need help or I need advice, he's a guy that there's not many people that I know that's worth $500 million that I can reach out to. And then within an hour, he reaches back out to me. Or there's not many guys. I've been in flat out arguments with Marshall. Like, you know, like not in each other's face, but like over message, like, dude, that's not right. Like, and like, that's kind of the relationship that we have, because like he set me down and right at the end, he made a comment and he said, you know, the age is even right. But he's like, over anybody that I've ever done this with here, he's like, I look at you more as a son than I look at anybody else. And age is actually right. And I looked at, and I kind of was startled. I didn't really know if he meant that kind of like as a student teacher thing, or if he, you know, if he meant it. And then we went over, you know, on the second night, he always takes you out to the strip to sit up front at one of the shows. So we went to Terry Fader, and he took me to the concession stand right before the show, or I can't remember, it was right before at half. And, you know, he's sitting there and he gives me cash. And I was just talking to him, and I told him, I said, listen, you know, I don't know, you know, if what you said was kind of like me as a plant, or if it, you know, because, you know, I'm kind of in shock. So I don't want to, you know, assume anything that's not real, but I wanted to make sure that I acknowledged it. So we're sitting there, and then he looked at me and he said, no, like, one, I mean it. And two, I want you to know that I'm going to hold you up to the highest standard, a lot higher than I hold on any other students, because you know, I see something special in you that I saw in me, and I'm going to hold you to that. So, you know, don't get mad if I hold your feet to the fire a little bit longer than I hold anybody else's. And believe me when I tell you, he's been true to his word. He's very hard on me. He's very hard on Tiffany. At the same time, when he sees us listening to him, and he sees us working on the things that he wants us to work on, which, you know, Marshall, it's always in between the lines, right? I can't think of one lesson I've ever learned that he's just kind of came out and said, hey, go do this. It's never like that. It's always in between the lines. Do you get the same thing with him?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, the conversations, you know, I mean, you know, he reminds me of an onion, right? There's so many layers to him that you know, when you're
so many layers.
When you're having conversations with him, you don't really know if what he's asking or telling you. And sometimes after maybe a day later, you're kind of like, okay, now I understand what he was trying to tell.
The crap out of
I agree, you know, and again, like you said, I mean, the one thing that I've got out of him, which I was very pleasantly surprised, is that even to this day, I can text him or call him, and he will call me right back or text me back with an answer of, you know, I have an idea, and he'll say, that's a great idea, let's move forward with it. And I really appreciate the fact that
he's legit. He's legit about it. Like, there's been times I've reached out to him and I've asked him something almost just kind of like for his validation. Yep. And he's flat out said, no, don't do it. And I'm like, what? And he's just been like, no, don't do it. Not a good idea. And I'm like, everybody that I've talked to, you know, like on my team, we're all like ready to go. And I'll reach out to you for some validation. Just some, oh yes, this looks good.
Yeah.
And not only does he get back in an hour, he's not afraid. And he's very, you know, when it comes to that, which I really like, and I feel like, Steve, you know, one thing I've realized with working with a lot more, like, you know, as you grow in your journey and you start, you know, I remember back in the day where I was just trying to find people that pay me $500, right? Where, I mean, like now, you know, like I'm working with people, it's a lot more of a long-term plan, and there's a lot of planning, and there's a lot of, you know, actionable items. We're not building one funnel or one ad, you know, I mean, like there's just a lot of things that go into it. And, you know, I think one of the biggest things I've realized is, you know, as you get up, like a lot of the people that I work with now, Steve, they're very personable, but there's very business and personal. And like, that's something I've had to learn. That's something I've had to grow with, is I've always kind of been one to mix the two. Whereas like these people, it's very cut and dry. Like there's no fluff. It's, we want to do this. Yes, yes, done. Wham, bam, thank you, man. And like, I get it now, and I'm learning it now because we're so busy. At the same time, I've always felt like when you get into those types of people know what they want, and they go out there and they get it. There's not this trying to figure it out. And I've always enjoyed working with those types of people because we get a lot more stuff done. And I think as an entrepreneur, you kind of learn to do that. You know, I never want to be one that's going to be cut and dry or emotionalist. At the same time, you know, Marshall, will do the same thing, you know, and he's kind of helped teach me that. I'll say this indirectly because it's not something he's told me. It's just kind of watching him with the way he treats me, the way he treats everybody. Yeah. Is when it's business time, it's business time. And Frank gets a little bit of credit for that as well. You know, some people here that are listening to this might have heard of a guy by the name of Frank Kern. He's kind of our generation of Dan Kennedy when it comes to direct response marketing. And, you know, he's a lot of people that are in my position's hero. And, you know, anyway, you know, I'll never forget that with him. He's like Mr. Good Cop on camera. And when he's out on TV or he's on a radio, whatever, when he's promoting, he's Mr. Good Guy. But when it's business time, he's Mr. Business, and he's emotional. He's the guy that really taught me to be emotionless when it came to business decisions. And I never knew how. And he's kind of given me a formula, well, not formula, but he's kind of taught me how to like really get myself into it just based on data. So that's an indirect thing I've learned from Marshall really is, you know, there's a time for business and there's a time for play. When it's time for business, still be the cool guy, but be quick and be efficient and be short. You know, it's okay to be brief. Well, and that's something he's worked on with me since April.
And I've learned a lot of people that are successful, you know, like you, I've been around, you know, very successful people over the years, and they all have that common trait. It's not personal. They shut it on and shut it off. But when all of a sudden, when you, let's say you're at a party with them, talking to them, and you maybe say, I have a business idea, or I've got this thing I'm thinking about, it's like a flip of a switch. And all of a sudden their mind switches from party mode to business mode. And now they're like, and like, you know as well as I do, like when you're talking to someone like Marshall or, you know, other people that are at that level, I mean, when they're listening, they are listening through you. I mean, they are like, you know, I mean, they are talking to you. Yeah. I remember I was having a meeting with Brad Lee, you know, all those guys. And I was talking.
I don't know him, but.
Yeah. So I'm sitting on his couch at his office and we're talking and stuff. And man, I thought to myself, this guy is looking like right through me. He was so intent on what I was talking to him about. It was, I mean, he may have not cared. I don't know, but he was so focused and so intent on what I was saying. Like I was the only person in the room, which I was, but you know, I was the only one that he wanted to listen to, and he really wanted to understand what I was saying. And Marshall does the same thing. And other people I've talked to, man, when you are talking business, it's like a laser, man, and they are just zoomed in.
Oh, they're honed in, and they're looking, you know, I think, you know, there was a lesson that goes into that, right? I mean, it really relates to that. And it was a lesson that I recently, you know, it's funny because Marshall has told me this at every single turning point, right? Every single basic, you know, the first training of Marshall, he talks about being in Satori. And I've been told this by Tiffany, by Marshall, by Ed Milet and Andy at Arate, by Frank, by Alex Sharfin, you might know Alex up in Austin, by every mentor I've ever had, right? I've been told this in different ways, and I'll never forget it. Like Brad Beard, who was basically Frank's, I don't want to say protege, but he was his CMO for like 3 years. He handled roughly around 52 million in Facebook and Instagram ads for Frank over 3 years. And I was working with him privately. Like he basically not really like kind of graduated with working with Frank and started his own agency. And I was his like third client that signed up with him because I wanted to work with him on a private level. I wanted to take what Frank had been teaching me and I wanted to take it to the next level. Well, one of the times I reached out to him and I told him, I said, I don't want to talk about ads today. I want to talk about X. And this X is I'd had this like demon that I've been fighting, entrepreneurial type demon I've been fighting. And I'll never forget this because Marshall obviously taught this within Satori, but it's probably the most important lesson that I've learned as an entrepreneur to date. And when I'm consciously, actively, like right now, I'm still working on this, Steve. It's not something that I've perfected, but when you can control your mind and you can literally turn your mind on and off and you can make your mind go to specific places and do specific things on command, you have so much power. It is scary. Like how much power you have, because like no one else has power over you. No task has power over you. No venture has power over you, and no person has power over you. It is like unlimited power. But what I had to learn was my mind since I was young, and I don't take this, I think it's a double-edged sword. But my mind goes so fast. And Steve, I know yours does too. You do a million things. Like I remember when I first talked to you, you're like, well, I'm in Australia today. And then it's like, yeah, but tomorrow I go to Africa. And then the next day I'm going to Honduras. And then the next day I'm going to Hawaii. And I'm just like, God, I thought I was busy, you know? But I know you've learned this lesson. He told me, he said, so I was sitting on there with Brad, and Brad said, he said, man, you worry about way too much stuff, and you got way too much stuff on your plate all the time, and no one can handle all the stuff that's on your plate. He's like, this is what you need to do. Because I got to the point, man, where like I had so much stuff. I was, you ever noticed that when our minds, when we do something wrong, it puts more weight on us messing up than it does on doing right. So if we think of us in a win that we got versus a mess up or a mistake that we made, we put more weight on the mistake than we put on the win, even though they should be even, 1 for 1, right? So like I was seeing a couple of mistakes that I had made in growing pains that were challenges, but they were weighing all the great stuff that I'd had. And I went to Brad and I was just like, bro, like, I'm no good at this. Like, I can't do this. Like, these are boneheaded mistakes. And he looked at me and he, first of all, made me do 100 burpees for time, which that was never fun. But then he told me, he said, man, here's the only thing you need to worry about. He was like, you get so worried about stuff that's going on tomorrow and stuff that happened. He was like, you really need to focus. Like right now, my focus is solely on this interview with you, Steve. I want to make this the best interview that you've ever had, which if you've had people like Bradley on here, that's probably a long shot. But you know what? I'm giving it my all. And I'm going to make this the best conversation and make sure that I'm providing the most value to the listeners that listen to this, whether it's 1 or 1 million. I'm focused right now only on this interview. Do I have stuff to do today? Yes. Did I have stuff that happened yesterday that was unfortunate that I have to take care of? Yes. Do I have stuff? I got a TV show I'm on tomorrow morning. Do I got to, prep for that? Yes. But right now, my only focus is being the best person that I can be for this interview. And if I put my mind on anything else, I'm distracted and I'm not going to be able to put forth the best in this interview. And then when I get done with this interview, I then have to go and I got to do something else and I got to do something else. If I consciously focus on being the best that I can be on every single task, every single day, and I focus on winning the task, and then from that task, winning more tasks than losing throughout the day, then I win that day. And as long as I win more days than I lose, then I get 1% better. Even on the days that I might make more mistakes, which is rare now, but I might make more mistakes than I do victories, that's still a step forward because I'm learning and growing, if you look at it from that stance. So I was told, just do that and focus on that. And you'll, at the end of every day, you would have put in 100%, you would have been your best. And then there's nothing that anybody can take from you in regards to that. And since I've been doing that, Steve, you take one step forward and then 4 or 5 days, every 4 or 5 days, I get an opportunity that opens up out of nowhere. Yeah. And I can't explain it, but that's just from movement.
I think, and that's so powerful, and it's actually a great way to end the show for people to think about. I think that you got to stay in your vertical, and you got to, and whatever that vertical is. Like right now, our vertical is this show, right? Yeah. You and I are both done with this show. We're going to compartmentalize this. We're going to lock it away, and we're going to move on to our next vertical, and we're going to focus on that. And like you, I've got other meetings that I've got to go to, but right now, this is the only thing I'm focused on. I'm not texting. I'm not doing this. I'm not talking to anyone. This is my vertical. And I think a lot of people, they think that they can get more done by going wide and not going deep. And I've learned, like you have, the more focus I can have on something and be intent on that focus, the better I'm going to be, whether it's in business, whether it's at the gym, whether it's with my son. I mean, whatever it is I'm doing, as long as I'm in that, when I'm on stage speaking,
you got to be in the moment.
Got to be focused. You can't let anything distract you. And the more focused you can be, and again, I think, what you said is very important. And I think that people need to learn that when you are in the moment and you are intently focused on what it is you want to do, nothing can stop you. Whether it's wrong, right, or anything, if you're intent and you're going down that path, man, you are going to be the best. Even if you're going the wrong way, you're still going to be the best going in the wrong direction. And then
look at people like David Goggins. Look at people like, I was listening to Frank Kern training yesterday, and one of the things that, he was going over, it was all about it's a mental training. It was all about your identity. And he was talking about, you need to set up, and he was like, how are you going to impact the world? Yep. And then he was making kind of a jokingly thing. It's kind of like, oh yeah, like our business is our little small business that makes, $500,000 or $1 million a year is going to impact the world. Yeah, right. But then he was like, well, what about Steve Jobs? What about, the Amazon guy, whatever, Jeff Bezos? What about, what was it, Al Gore? And was it Al Gore on the internet or whoever it was on the internet? So like, look at Tesla with what's his name? So, I mean, look at all these companies. I mean, you even look at ClickFunnels with Russell. You look at all these companies, and a couple of years ago, I mean, the biggest one for me, Steve, and I know this, and then we'll end on, I know you got to go, but like the biggest one for me is when you go to Las Vegas right now, it's so different than what it was 5 years ago. Uber has taken that town over, and Uber and Lyft. And you talked about making an impact on culture and everyday lives of a city. Uber and Lyft have done that in Las Vegas. And so don't ever cut yourself short thinking you can't impact the world, because you look at those companies and you say, oh, these are gargantuan companies. They're in Silicon Valley or this or that. No, these were a thought. These started out as a thought and idea, and then those ideas and thoughts expanded. You have thoughts and ideas every day. And I guarantee you that you have thoughts and ideas that could be just as big, if not bigger than those. It's just a matter of expanding on them and putting energy towards them.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely, man. I love it. I love it. Well, Sid, man.
I appreciate it, man. You can have a 5-hour podcast episode, but we do got to make sure we mention those. So to all of Steve's listeners, Steve, we're me and my lovely bride, Tiffany Toombs. And if you're from Inner Circle, Marshall Silver's Inner Circle, or of course hanging out with Steve, you might have seen us around. We're going to be hosting an event all about tripling your business in 30 days so that you can triple your income, or tripling your influence in 30 days so you can triple your income. Steve's coming, talking about, I know, his virtual assistants, and talking about how he's your book is amazing, how you accidentally became a millionaire. I mean, it's just so awesome. So I know he's going to have his book. We're going to be giving away some of his books at the event as well. So come and see Steve, and a whole other slew of great. We're going to be doing it in Houston, I'm sure, next year as well. But we do want y'all, it's going to be in Dallas, November 6th and 7th. And if you listen to this show, let Steve know, and I'll get you over a pair of tickets personally for free and put you guys in a drawing to have VIP dinner with me and Steve and some of the other speakers the night before. So definitely just let Steve know, and then I'll get you over any details and get you over some free tickets to come up to Dallas and support some of your Texans in some business stuff. And we're super excited. It's going to be a lot of fun. So that's my bribe to your list. You're involved in it though. So give them a bribe that has you.
Somebody wants to get in touch with you directly, how do they find you online?
Best way, man, is Facebook, to be honest. I'm on Facebook, all the time. I can give my number, but I don't, I did that once, and it was a bad idea. But yeah, just go on to Facebook under Sid Clevinger. If you want to check us out, I'm working on, you can go over to Better Leads Box is kind of where a lot of our information is. But yeah, the best way is just Sid Clevinger on Facebook, and, reach out, friend me. Shoot me a private message. Let me know. I plan on, we're all about, our whole mission is we understand that the more value we give, the more money we make. So, if you want to be around us, we're constantly focusing on different ways of giving more value out to our marketplace, because we know if we do, the more value we give, the more money we make. We've literally ironed that out. So, we got different places and different programs that are absolutely free that you can hop in. If you go over to betterleadsbox.com, we have a free social media training over there. I know Steve does that as well. But we collaborate on how we do that stuff as well. And, sole goal here. We all win when we all win. Find something that is a good fit for you, and then go all in and aim at winning that. Then when you win, people around you start winning, and then guess what? The ripple effect is real, and you helping your own little world win helps the big world win in a large way. So you are worthy, you are good enough. Go out there and kick ass, and help other people win alongside you, and the world becomes a better place. There
Love it, man. Sid,
that's my bumper.
Thanks so much, man. I look forward to seeing you in November. I'm sure we'll chat before then. And let's keep in touch. And everybody, I want to thank you, everyone, for watching. Obviously, you can get a hold of Sid. Find him on Facebook. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, all those other things. You can go to Rozenberg.com, and we'll be pushing this out. So, everyone, thanks for watching, and we will see you guys next week. Bye-bye.